The Tragarion delegation loomed in the doorway of Earth's interstellar diplomacy hall, their shimmering purple exoskeletons glinting under the simulated sunlight. High Emissary Gorton surveyed the scene with his usual air of skepticism, his antennae twitching faintly. Earth was notorious in the galactic community a place of wild contradictions. Its inhabitants were said to be resilient to the point of absurdity, thriving in conditions that would incapacitate most known species. Yet for all their tenacity, it wasn't the humans' ability to survive that unnerved Gorton. It was their food. High Emissary. Felgreb murmured in their native vibrating tones, poring over a newly acquired dossier. The data is troubling. Earthlings regularly consume chemical irritants some classified in our databases as biohazards. Capsaicin, for instance, is a Class 4 corrosive toxin. Yet they voluntarily ingest it. Gorton's claws clicked together in disbelief. That cannot be accurate. Surely a mistranslation. No intelligent species would willingly subject themselves to poison. Felgreb adjusted his ocular array. The data is consistent across all sources. They refer to it as seasoning. Gorton was about to reply when the heavy oak doors before them swung open with an ominous creak. A human male strode forward, his fitted suit, an effortless grin, an alarming blend of professionalism and mischief. "Welcome to Earth," the man said, his voice bright and disarmingly casual. "I'm Alex Porter, your liaison for today. Let me just say, we're absolutely thrilled to have the esteemed Tragarion delegation with us." Gorton hesitated, scrutinizing Alex with the meticulous eye of a predator analyzing potential prey. Tragarion diplomacy relied heavily on anticipating deceit, yet Alex's demeanor exuded a baffling mix of sincerity and irreverence that defied categorization. "Greetings," Alex Porter Gorton replied, his translator rendering his buzzing tones into crisp English. "We come in the spirit of mutual understanding." "Perfect," Alex said, clapping his hands together. "Follow me. We've arranged a cultural showcase capped off with a feast in your honor. You're going to love it." Felgreb's antennae twitched violently as Alex turned and beckoned them forward. "High Emissary," he whispered urgently, "I advise extreme caution. Their culinary practices are unconventional at best." Gorton silenced him with a curt gesture. "Diplomacy demands respect, Felgreb. We must not offend. Proceed cautiously, but proceed." The delegation followed Alex through a series of chambers, each adorned with relics of human culture paintings, holograms, and sculptures in strange organic shapes. Eventually, they arrived in a vast hall dominated by a banquet table that stretched nearly the length of the room. Platters overflowed with an astonishing array of colors, textures, and scents. There were steaming dishes of every kind, sauces in hues that ranged from golden yellow to an alarming crimson, and an entire section seemingly dedicated to glowing, gelatinous substances. "This," Alex said with a flourish, "is the best of human cuisine. Each dish tells a story of creativity, resilience, and honestly, a little chaos. Feel free to dive in." Gorton leaned toward Felgreb. "Interpret that last phrase." Felgreb, eyes wide, replied, "I believe he means, begin the consumption." Hesitantly, the Tragarians approached the table. Gorton selected a small piece of bread, sniffing it delicately. Harmless. Encouraged, he moved on to a cluster of vegetables drizzled in a curious golden liquid. The flavor was surprisingly agreeable, prompting him to sample several other dishes. Then Alex brought out the sauces. "Here," Alex said, setting down a small bowl filled with fiery red liquid. "This is hot sauce, a human classic. It pairs well with almost anything." Gorton examined the substance, his antennae curling slightly. It seemed alive, its glossy surface shifting as if it might leap from the bowl. "It is. Vibrant," he managed diplomatically. Alex grinned. "Oh, it's vibrant, all right. Go ahead, give it a try." Reluctantly, Gorton dipped the tip of a morsel into the sauce and raised it to his mandibles. The reaction was immediate. A firestorm of heat erupted across his sensory receptors, sending shock waves through his nervous system. Gorton's exoskeleton rattled as he emitted an involuntary burst of high-pitched clicks. "What is this atrocity?" he gasped, clutching his hydration canister and downing its contents in a single gulp. Alex raised an eyebrow. You mean the hot sauce? It's just capsaicin and extract from chili peppers. You okay? Felgreb rushed to Gorton's side, scanning him with a portable device. High emissary, your vitals are fluctuating. This capsaicin is a concentrated irritant. For humans, it's a flavoring. For us, it's essentially a neurotoxin. Alex blinked. Wait, you're saying you guys can't handle spicy food? Not even a little. Felgreb stared at Alex, his voice a blend of horror and disbelief. Handle it? It's a biohazard. Your species consumes poison as if it were a recreational activity. Alex suppressed a laugh but couldn't hide his amusement entirely. Okay, I see where the misunderstanding is. For us, capsaicin isn't a toxin, it's a stimulant. Sure, it burns, but that's part of the fun. It releases endorphins, makes you feel alive. Feel alive, Gorton rasped, still recovering. It nearly ended me. Felgreb glared at Alex. Your recklessness is incomprehensible. No wonder your species is infamous for unpredictability. Hey, Alex said, raising his hands defensively, I didn't mean to offend. I just thought you'd enjoy trying something new. Gorton straightened, his composure slowly returning. We are here to learn, Alex Porter. This anomaly will not deter us. As the meal progressed, the Tragarions became hypervigilant. Each new dish was scanned, analyzed, and deemed safe before tasting, though their wariness did little to diminish their curiosity. The unexpected tangs, the subtle sweetness, and the intricate layers of flavor left them equal parts perplexed and impressed. How Felgreb whispered to Gorton during a moment of respite. Does this species thrive when their sustenance is so hazardous? Alex overheard and grinned. Adaptation. Humans don't just survive extremes, we embrace them. Food's just one example. It's not about tolerating the heat, it's about reveling in it. Gorton studied Alex carefully, his antennae motionless for a moment. You are a peculiar species, Alex Porter. Reckless, chaotic, and wholly unconventional. Yet there is something compelling about your resilience. Alex leaned back in his chair, smiling. Stick around, Gorton. We're just getting started. The next morning, the Tragarion delegation reconvened in the Interstellar Diplomacy Hall, their wariness of human cuisine now firmly ingrained. Despite their initial apprehension, High Emissary Gorton had insisted on continuing the culinary cultural exchange. Curiosity, after all, was the cornerstone of diplomacy. Felgreb approached Gorton as they prepared to enter the dining hall. High Emissary, I must urge caution. Yesterday's encounter with the so-called hot sauce was destabilizing. Perhaps we should request milder demonstrations. Felgreb Gorton replied, his antennae flicking with determination. To retreat now would show weakness. Understanding requires persistence. We will proceed. Felgreb muttered something inaudible as the doors opened to reveal Alex Porter waiting with his trademark grin, a steaming mug of coffee in hand. Morning team, Alex called out. Hope you're ready for round 2. Today's theme is fusion cuisine. We're going to explore what happens when we combine your flavors with ours. Gorton raised a claw. Before we proceed, Alex Porter, I must insist on additional safeguards. Every dish must be analyzed before consumption. Alex nodded. Fair enough. We've set up a scanning station right over there. Nothing gets to the table until your team gives it the green light. Felgreb visibly relaxed. At least someone here values precaution. The delegation moved to a room where human chefs were busy at work alongside Tragarion culinary specialists. The contrast in their methods was striking. Humans chopped, seared, and seasoned with a wild flourish, while the Tragarions employed precise, almost mechanical techniques, assembling their nutrient-dense fare with exacting precision. Alex approached the group with 2 small bowls. All right, here's our first experiment. We combined your gelatinous vorak extract with our traditional broth base to create a hybrid soup. Give it a try. Gorton accepted the bowl, his antennae twitching as he sniffed the concoction. This aroma is intriguing. Felgreb, ever cautious, scanned the soup with his portable device. It appears non-toxic, he said reluctantly, but I recommend consuming it in minimal quantities. Gorton dipped his mandibles into the bowl, tasting the soup. The warmth of the broth was balanced by the smooth texture of the vorak. A subtle heat lingered in the background, not enough to overwhelm, but just enough to add depth. "This is," remarkable, Gordon said after a pause. "The flavors complement one another in a way I did not expect." "Exactly," Alex said, visibly pleased. "That's what fusion is all about, combining strengths from different traditions to create something new." Felgreb tried the soup with great reluctance. His antennae quivered as he tasted it, and for the first time he offered no immediate critique. "It is tolerable," he admitted, which from Felgreb was practically a glowing review. As the day progressed, the chefs continued experimenting, creating hybrid dishes that showcased elements of both Earth and Tragarion culinary traditions. Gordon found himself increasingly engaged, offering suggestions for balancing flavors and textures. Even Felgreb, despite his protests, became an unlikely advocate for a dessert that combined Earth's dark chocolate with the Tragarion's protein-rich krill sap. But then came the sauces. "I know yesterday's hot sauce was a bit much," Alex said, setting down a tray of small containers, "so today I brought milder options. Think of these as training wheels for spice." Gordon regarded the tray with cautious curiosity. "What are these?" "Dips and condiments," Alex explained. "This one's a classic barbecue sauce, smoky, sweet, and just a little tangy. And this one's sriracha. It's spicier, but not anywhere near the level of yesterday's sauce." Felgreb glared at Alex. "Not anywhere near? That is hardly reassuring." "Hey, I get it," Alex said, raising his hands. "But I promise this stuff is way more approachable. Give it a shot." Gordon selected the barbecue sauce first, dipping a small piece of roasted vegetable into it. He tasted it cautiously, expecting the worst. Instead, he was met with a complex interplay of flavors, sweetness balanced by a subtle smokiness. "This is pleasant," Gordon said, sounding almost surprised. He took another bite, this time with more sauce. Encouraged, Alex offered the sriracha next. "All right, this one's got a bit of a kick, but it's more about flavor than heat." Gordon hesitated, but eventually dipped a morsel into the vivid red sauce. The first sensation was warmth, a tingling heat that spread slowly, accompanied by a bold, garlicky flavor. "This is fascinating," Gordon said after a moment. "The heat is present, but it does not overpower. It enhances." Felgreb, meanwhile, had taken one whiff of the sriracha and recoiled. "Hi, emissary, are you certain this is wise? Your receptors are still recovering from yesterday." "I will not allow yesterday's experience to dictate today's progress," Gordon replied firmly, taking another bite. "This, sriracha, embodies the balance Alex Porter spoke of." Alex grinned. "Told you." The day ended with the unveiling of the centerpiece dish, a hybrid stew that combined human spices with Tragarion grains and proteins. The delegation sampled it with cautious enthusiasm, their initial apprehension giving way to genuine enjoyment. As they prepared to leave, Gordon turned to Alex. "Your species' approach to food is unlike anything we have encountered. You treat it not merely as sustenance, but as a form of exploration. This philosophy intrigues me." Alex chuckled. "Food's more than just fuel for us. It's history, culture, and a way to connect. And yeah, sometimes it's a little wild, but that's what makes it fun." Gordon's antennae twitched thoughtfully. "Perhaps there is wisdom in your chaos, Alex Porter. We will reflect on today's lessons." Felgreb, trailing behind, muttered, "If we survive this culinary gauntlet, it will be nothing short of miraculous." Alex laughed as the delegation departed. "Don't worry, Felgreb, we're just warming up." By the third day, word of the Tragarion delegation's culinary struggles had spread through the interstellar diplomacy hall. Humans found the aliens' cautious approach to food both endearing and bewildering. Meanwhile, the Tragarions had begun to view human cuisine as an ongoing trial, one that demanded equal measures of bravery and strategy. In the private quarters of the Tragarion delegation, High Emissary Gordon was reviewing notes from the previous day. Beside him, Felgreb paced nervously, his antennae twitching in agitation. High Emissary Felgreb said, breaking the silence, "Our continued participation in these events is becoming increasingly hazardous. Yesterday's sriracha experiment, though less severe than the hot sauce incident, still posed significant challenges to our biology." And yet Gordon replied calmly, "We have endured. Furthermore, we have learned. That is the purpose of this mission. Felgreb stopped pacing. Endurance is one thing. Actively courting further exposure to capsaicin is another. Gorton waved a claw dismissively. Felgreb, you failed to see the larger picture. These humans transform discomfort into pleasure. They embrace challenge and adapt to adversity, even seeking it out. This quality is central to understanding their resilience. Felgreb sighed heavily. Understanding their resilience might very well destroy ours. Before Gorton could respond, a chime announced the arrival of Alex Porter, who appeared in the doorway with his trademark grin. Morning, team. I hope you're hungry, because today's event is all about collaboration. Gorton tilted his head. Collaboration. That's right, Alex said, stepping inside. We're going to cook together. Humans and Tragarions side by side, creating something that represents both our cultures. Trust me, it'll be fun. Felgreb muttered, your definition of fun continues to alarm me. The culinary collaboration took place in the Grand Hall, where cooking stations had been set up with an impressive array of ingredients. Human chefs bustled around, setting up their tools, while Tragarion culinary specialists cautiously unpacked their own supplies. A curious crowd of human diplomats and onlookers had gathered to watch the spectacle. Alex clapped his hands. All right, here's the plan. We're going to make a dish that highlights the best of both our cuisines. Think fusion, but with equal input from both sides. Gorton stepped forward. A noble endeavor. What is the first step? Brainstorming, Alex said. We'll start with the ingredients. Humans love spices and bold flavors, but we'll balance that with your precision and focus on nutrition. Sound good? Gorton nodded. Acceptable. As the teams began discussing ideas, Felgreb eyed the human ingredients with open suspicion. He pointed to a cluster of bright red chilies. Are these also laced with capsaicin? Not those ones, Alex assured him. Those are sweet peppers. No heat, just flavor. Felgreb relaxed slightly. At last, something non-lethal. Meanwhile, Gorton had taken a keen interest in the human chef's use of herbs and spices. He watched as a chef named Maria prepared a marinade, her hands moving deftly as she added pinches of colorful powders and fresh sprigs of greenery. This process, Gorton said, appears imprecise. How do you ensure consistency? Maria smiled. Cooking's an art as much as it is a science. You taste as you go, adjusting based on what feels right. Gorton's antennae twitched thoughtfully. An intuitive approach. Unusual, but intriguing. Under Alex's guidance, the teams began assembling a dish they dubbed Unity Stew. The base was a rich broth, infused with Tragarion nutrients and human spices. The protein was a blend of earth-grown beans and Tragarion krill cubes, a gelatinous substance packed with amino acids. Vegetables from both worlds were added, creating a vibrant medley of colors and textures. As they cooked, the humans shared anecdotes about how food brought people together, from family meals to cultural celebrations. The Tragarions, in turn, described their emphasis on efficiency and sustenance, explaining how their cuisine was designed to maximize energy and longevity. When it came time to season the stew, the real challenge began. The Tragarions wanted balance, while the humans argued for boldness. Alex suggested a compromise, a mild level of spice that would enhance the flavors without overwhelming them. High Emissary, Alex said, offering Gorton a small spoonful of the seasoned broth. You should be the first to taste it. Gorton hesitated only briefly before tasting the broth. He clicked his mandibles thoughtfully, his antennae curling and uncurling in a rhythmic pattern. It is harmonious, Gorton declared. The spice is present but does not dominate. The flavors complement one another effectively. Alex grinned. That's what we were going for. Encouraged, Felgreb cautiously tried a spoonful. His antennae stiffened, and for a moment, it seemed he might launch into another tirade. Instead, he nodded grudgingly. It is adequate. By the time the stew was ready, the room was filled with the warm aroma of the collaborative creation. Bowls were served to the onlookers, who applauded the effort as they tasted the dish. The humans were pleasantly surprised by the nutrient-dense krill cubes, while the Tragarions marveled at how the spices enhanced the flavor profile. As the event concluded, Gorton addressed the room. This unity stew represents more than the blending of ingredients. It symbolizes the blending of our philosophies and the strength that comes from embracing our differences. Through this collaboration, we have forged a small but meaningful connection between our species. The room erupted in applause, and Alex clapped Gorton on the shoulder. "You've got away with words, High Emissary. I think you're starting to get the hang of human culture." Gorton's antennae twitched in amusement. "Perhaps. Though I doubt I will ever fully comprehend your obsession with capsaicin." Alex laughed. "Fair enough. Baby steps." As the Tragarion delegation departed for the evening, Felgreb lingered behind, his gaze lingering on the empty cooking station. Alex noticed and approached him. "You okay?" Felgreb Alex asked. Felgreb sighed. "Your species remains deeply unsettling, Alex Porter. Yet, I cannot deny, there is something admirable in your chaos." Alex grinned. "Careful, Felgreb. That almost sounded like a compliment." Felgreb huffed and walked away, muttering something about impending digestive distress. Alex watched him go, shaking his head with a smile. "We're making progress." The final day of the Tragarion delegation's visit began with a buzz of anticipation. Despite their initial hesitations, the delegation had grown increasingly curious about human culinary practices and their broader implications. High Emissary Gorton had even requested a final session dedicated to understanding the extremes of human resilience. Alex Porter, of course, was delighted to oblige. "This is it," Alex said, addressing the delegation as they gathered in the main chamber. "Today's theme is a celebration of boldness and bravery and exploration of humanity's love for pushing limits." Felgreb crossed his arms. "In other words, another opportunity for you to expose us to capsaicin." "Not exactly," Alex replied, grinning. "This time you'll get to decide just how far you want to go." Behind Alex, a table had been set up with a series of neatly arranged dishes, each labeled with a number. The spread ranged from mild, flavor-focused creations to plates adorned with ominously red sauces and peppers that seemed to radiate heat. "I call this the Scoville Challenge," Alex announced, gesturing to the table. "Each dish is spicier than the last. You can start as mild as you want, and stop whenever you feel like you've hit your limit. No pressure." Gorton's antennae twitched as he studied the table. "This appears to be some sort of trial." "It's a tradition, actually," Alex explained. "Humans use challenges like these to test themselves, bond with others, and honestly just have some fun." Felgreb emitted a long, skeptical hum. "Your concept of fun continues to elude me." "Hey, it's all about pushing boundaries," Alex said with a shrug. "You don't have to go far, just far enough to understand the thrill." The first dish was a simple plate of nachos topped with a mild salsa. Gorton tried one cautiously and was pleasantly surprised. The flavors were bright and tangy, with only a faint trace of heat. "This is agreeable," he admitted. Felgreb, eyeing the salsa warily, took a single chip and nibbled the edge. He paused, then nodded. "It is tolerable." As they moved up the table, the heat began to build. The second dish, featuring a jalapeno-infused dip, brought a noticeable warmth, though it remained within the bounds of comfort. By the third dish, a stew made with cayenne and smoked paprika, Gorton could feel the heat lingering longer on his mandibles, but he found himself intrigued rather than overwhelmed. "This sensation is invigorating," Gorton said, reaching for another spoonful. "You're doing great," Alex encouraged. "Most people stop here their first time. You're already ahead of the curve." Felgreb, however, was far less enthused. He had stopped participating after the second dish and was now monitoring Gorton's reactions with increasing alarm. "High Emissary, this is unnecessary. You have already demonstrated remarkable endurance." "I disagree," Gorton said, his tone resolute. "This challenge offers insights into the human psyche. To understand them, we must experience what they value." The next dish was where the real test began, wings coated in a sauce made with habanero peppers. Gorton hesitated as he picked up a wing, studying the vibrant orange glaze. Alex offered him a glass of milk as a precaution. "You might need this," Alex said. With a determined flick of his antennae, Gorton took a bite. The heat hit almost immediately, spreading across his sensory receptors like wildfire. His exoskeleton flushed faintly, and his antennae twitched uncontrollably. Yet, beneath the fire, he detected a sweetness that balanced the intensity. "It is," Extraordinary Gorton managed after a moment. "The discomfort is undeniable, but so too is the complexity of the flavor." Alex beamed. "That's the spirit. It's not just about the heat, it's about what the heat brings out." Felgreb shook his head, muttering, "This is madness." The final dish on the table was a single, ominous pepper resting on a pristine white plate. Alex picked it up, holding it like a trophy. "This is the Carolina Reaper. One of the spiciest peppers on Earth. It's the ultimate challenge." "Surely no one consumes this voluntarily," Felgreb said, aghast. "Not often," Alex admitted. "But when they do, it's kind of a badge of honor. It's more about proving you can handle it." Gorton studied the pepper, his multifaceted eyes reflecting both trepidation and resolve. "If this represents the pinnacle of your culinary boldness, I must attempt it, for the sake of understanding." Felgreb began to protest, but Gorton raised a claw to silence him. He carefully sliced a tiny sliver from the pepper and placed it in his mandibles. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Heat unlike anything he had experienced exploded through his system, causing his exoskeleton to shimmer with a strange, iridescent glow. For a moment, the room was silent. Then Gorton straightened, breathing heavily but standing firm. "It is beyond comprehension," he said, his voice steadier than expected. "The heat is extreme, but it reveals layers of sensation I would not have believed possible." Alex clapped. "Gorton, you're a legend. Most humans wouldn't even try that." Felgreb was frantically scanning Gorton with his medical device. "High Emissary, you are destabilizing. We must administer a counteragent immediately." "Do not worry," Felgreb Gorton replied, accepting a glass of milk from Alex. "I have endured, and I have gained valuable insight into this human tradition. It is not mere recklessness, it is a testament to their ability to face adversity head-on." Alex nodded. "That's exactly it. Sometimes it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. Even if the journey burns a little." As the delegation prepared to leave Earth the next day, Gorton addressed Alex one last time. "Your species is unlike any we have encountered, Alex Porter. You take what others would avoid and transform it into something meaningful, something unifying. While we may never fully embrace your methods, we leave with a greater understanding of your strength." Alex extended a hand, which Gorton shook with a firm grip. "Thanks, Gorton. And hey, if you ever feel like another challenge, you know where to find us." As the Tragarions boarded their ship, Felgreb muttered under his breath, "I will never understand humans. But I suppose that's the point." Alex watched the ship ascend, a smile playing on his lips. Humanity had once again managed to connect with an alien species not through technology, treaties, or power, but through their unrelenting, spicy determination.